There's been a bizarre story developing involving Joyanne Reid, the MSNBC host. So she wrote some shitty stuff in the past on her blog about gay people, and when some people dug that up a few months ago, she came out and apologized. Well, now people dug up some more anti-gay stuff, some new, old anti-gay stuff, and this time, instead of apologizing, she said she was hacked. Now, that's a very, not only curious thing to say, it's a ridiculous thing to say because, you know, for example, it was in like this thing called the Wayback Machine, and then I think there were a variety of sites that had logged these posts that she made. So not only would hackers have had to go in there, write the shit she said before she was anybody, before she was really widely known, they also would have had to do it at a variety of different sites. Which is like, no, nobody's going to do that. And, you know, people were pointing out, hey, the real scandal here would be that it's possible to hack the thing called the Wayback Machine, the site called the Wayback Machine, where, you know, so then anybody's history can be changed by anybody who would hack a site like that and make it seem like they did or wrote something years ago. So that's a huge story that would deserve a tremendous amount of attention because, you know, how can anybody trust anything then? So people were pointing out, not only is that unlikely, it's damn near impossible. And then on top of that, some of the shit she wrote, she tweeted back then. So she's telling us people hacked into her blog when she was a nobody, wrote shit pretending to be her, posted it on a variety of different websites, and then also tweeted it out on her Twitter, and she didn't even notice. It's not like she's on Twitter, she saw somebody apparently hacked and put words in her mouth and then tweeted it, and she wasn't alarmed at the time. She was just like, oh, look at that, somebody hacked me, and then she kept moving on. It is just beyond obnoxious in terms of the degree of a lie that we're talking about here. Well, this is weird what happened next. It's all weird up to this point, but what happened next is perhaps even weirder. Despite claiming that she was hacked, she also apologized again. Take a look.
Good morning and welcome to AM Joy. A community that I support and that I deeply care about is hurting because of some despicable and truly offensive posts being attributed to me. Now, many of you have seen these blog posts circulating online and in social media. Many of them are homophobic, discriminatory, and outright weird and hateful. When a friend found them in December and sent them to me, I was stunned. Frankly, I couldn't imagine where they'd come from or whose voice that was. In the months since, I've spent a lot of time trying to make sense of these posts. I hired cybersecurity experts to see if somebody had manipulated my words or my former blog. And the reality is they have not been able to prove it. But here's what I know. I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things because they are completely alien to me. But I can definitely understand, based on things I have tweeted and have written in the past, why some people don't believe me. I've not been exempt from being dumb or cruel or hurtful to the very people I want to advocate for. I own that. I get it. And for that, I am truly, truly sorry. I had a conversation the other day with a friend who's also an advocate in the LGBTQ community in Florida, who rightly took me to task for my tweets mocking Ann Coulter using transgender stereotypes. I apologize to my friend, and I want to apologize to the trans community and to Ann. Those tweets were wrong and horrible. I look back today at some of the ways I've talked casually about people and gender identity and sexual orientation, and I wonder who that even was. But the reality is that, like a lot of people in this country, that person was me. I grew up in a household that, like many in America, had conservative views on LGBTQ issues. I had friends, some of my closest friends, in fact, growing up, who I later learned were gay and who had kept it secret from me and from everyone else we were close to because they didn't know what we would say or if we would still be friends or whether we would look at them differently. I can remember a friend of mine, my freshman year in college, telling me he was gay, and my knee-jerk reaction being that it was so disappointing to the women he could have married. He was so hurt, he didn't speak to me for months. I'm heartbroken that I didn't do better back then, knowing so many great people in the LGBTQ community, including amazing friends and journalists and producers and political operatives and great dads and moms and advocates and just regular people. And knowing how hard it must have been for so many of them to come out to their families, to their friends, to just walk around in the world, especially for trans people. And I feel like I should have known better than to ever write or tweet in a way that could make fun of or make light of that pain and that experience, even a decade ago when the country was in a very different place. But I cannot take any of that back. I can only say that the person I am now is not the person I was then. I like to think I've gotten better as a person over time, that I'm still growing, that I'm not the same person I was 10 or 5 or even 1 year ago. And I know that my goal is to try to be a better person and a better ally. Now, the reality is I have to own the things that I've written and tweeted and said. And I'm hoping out of all of this, there's an opportunity to talk about the ways in which hurtful speech really does imperil marginalized communities. These issues matter, not just theoretically, but because we're talking about our friends, our kids, our coworkers, people who deserve better than what I have sometimes given them.
Why are you apologizing if you didn't write them? Now, we went through this once before. They found anti-gay stuff she wrote, and then she came out and said, I'm sorry about that. But now you're saying these new ones I didn't write, I was hacked. So then why are you saying that and then apologizing for it? And she said, quote, I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things. Then again, why are you apologizing? Shouldn't your whole thing be, I didn't write them, and something's going on here, we're going to get to the bottom of it. I know what I said hasn't been proven yet, but I'm on a mission to prove it because I know that that's the case. I know I didn't write these things. But she didn't. She said, I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things. She's saying that because, listen, she wrote them. And her claim was beyond ridiculous. Any expert will tell you. She hired her own, basically fake expert to say, yep, she's right, that's what happened. And then they were like, where's your evidence? And he was like, new phone, who dis? Evidence? I don't even know what that means. What does that mean, evidence? So, listen, here's the thing, man. To tell you, I give less than no fucks about what she said back then. By the way, I went through some of it. Some of it you could say is hateful. Others are just strike me as like, crude jokes, And honestly, it's akin to like me and friends of mine. When you saw something you didn't like, your reaction in like high school was like gay. Now, as South Park brilliantly points out, that doesn't mean that like when somebody like me was saying that I'm saying, hey, being a homosexual is inferior and wrong compared to heterosexuality. No, it's something that developed over time that became decoupled from being hateful. Because, as far as I can remember, I've been in favor of gay marriage. I've always been in favor of gay marriage. But that doesn't mean that I haven't at times in jest said gay, or, at times you say your friend, you would say to your friend, faggot. Like if you want to have an impact and hit him, like, yeah, faggot. Now, again, would I do that now? Probably not. No, I wouldn't talk in that way. But I would vehemently disagree with the idea that when I said those things, that's me being anti-gay, because it's simply not. You can say those things and be, not politically correct, but at the same time, you're not saying what people insist you're saying. So in other words, people would hear me saying something like that or read me saying something like that and go, oh, Kyle hates gay people and he's anti-gay. But that's factually not true. I'm in favor of gay marriage. I've always fought for gay rights. But at the same time, I also don't bite my tongue. And I was an awkward young white boy who said Nigga too. Does that mean I'm racist? No, it's just... So, in other words, I don't care about what she said back then. Some of it, I'm sure, was genuinely anti-gay because she was against gay marriage. So there's really not a comparison between me, who's always been for gay marriage. But some of it, I'm sure, was jokes. Some of it was genuinely anti-gay. But even if it was all genuinely anti-gay, I don't care because now she's pro-gay. So she changed her mind. And now she's in favor of gay people. So she came to the right position. So all her long spiel here about talking about, the hate against gay people. Yeah, we all agree. We all agree. We know you're not anti-gay anymore. We know you're on the right side of that issue now. But you're talking the entire time. The real elephant in the room, the real issue was not what you said. It's the fact that you're giant, disgusting, brazen lie to cover it up. And then now you have every MSNBC host, including Rachel Maddow, talking about how, I've never been more proud to work with Joy-Ann Reid than I am right now. All these, corporate Democrat types, establishment Democrat types are rushing in to defend her. The Daily Kos, the guy who came up with Daily Kos, Marcos Melitsis or whatever the fuck his name is, he's like, I'm with Joy Reid. That no question. Okay, well then here's the thing, guys. If somebody who's supposed to give us the news, give us information, data, facts, and portrays themselves as a truth teller, if she tells a giant lie like this, and that's what it is, a giant lie, and you're cool with it, I don't want to hear another fucking word about fake news from you guys ever again. Because what happened here is an MSNBC host spread a story that is just preposterously fake to cover her own ass, and you are like, yeah, I'm fine with that because I like her. Okay, well then stop pretending you're against fake news. You're for fake news as long as you like the people it's in service of. So as long as you're doing fake news to side with Democratic establishment politicians or hack Democratic loyalist pundits, well then you're fine with it. So I want to be crystal clear about what my take on this is. I don't care I couldn't care less about what she actually said back then. Because even if she was genuinely anti-gay, and it looks like she was because she was against gay marriage, so that's anti-gay by definition, she's now for gay rights. So total and utter pass on whatever she said on those issues back then. In other words, if you're harping away on that aspect of the story, get over yourself. Everybody's had shitty opinions at one point or another, or said things that are not politically correct, or whatever the case. So don't harp away on that, because there's no there on that front. She's on the right side now, and that's why everybody, the entire gay community is like, virtually the entire gay community, you can't speak for all of them, of course, but there are many, like she just went to a panel of like 4 gay people to back her up after she did this rant here. So most people are like, yeah, we forgive you for that. There's no problem. Glenn Greenwald, brilliant guy. He, as a gay man, was like, yeah, I don't care. That part of it, we evolve, we move, we get over it. Everybody's fine with that. Everybody has opinions and they evolve and they change. But again, his point was, but she told a disgusting lie in the service of covering up what she said. And Jimmy Dore has a good theory on this. He says that he thinks after the last incident where there was the anti-gay stuff found and she apologized for it, she had a meeting with MSNBC executives, and the executives were like, is there anything else? Like, we'll get past this one. We could work through this one, but is there anything else on that blog? And she was like, no. And then when this came out, she was like, yeah, they're going to fire me if I admit to this one. I was hacked. So I think that's a brilliant theory from Jimmy. I think that probably has something to do with it. But again, either way, the stuff she said, we can all get past. That's fine. She's on the right side on those issues today. But just never again, you can't look at Joy-Ann Reid as a source of truth, as a source of, news, honest opinions. Because we know at the end of the day, she's a liar and she'd spread fake news in an instant to cover her own ass. And then that calls into question everything else she's ever said. And listen, this is illuminating because Joy-Ann Reid is somebody who repeatedly went after Edward Snowden. Used to go after Chelsea Manning all the fucking time. Is squarely in the Hillary camp over Bernie Sanders and regularly smears Bernie bros and is totally unscrupulous. So She really is a hack of epic proportions. And this is such a great example of it, where she tell the most insane lie to cover for herself. And then when people point out, whoa, the issue here is the lie that you told after the fact, what does she do? She shrouds herself in, I've grown and I've evolved past those opinions that I had, and we need to talk about this because it shows how marginalized communities really are marginalized. So in other words, it's like, let me take this instance of me being a total liar and a fraud, and instead of acknowledging that and accepting the consequences for it, redirect the conversation, obfuscate, and act like, no, this is about the bad opinions I had, and now we're past that. Now I'm a fighter on the right side of this issue. Again, nobody's harping away on that aspect of it, or very few people are. Most people are saying, no, the problem was the cover-up and the brazen lie, and then you're going to have the nerve to go out on your show over the next few weeks and talk about fake news and call out Donald Trump. Well, you don't have a fucking leg to stand on when you say shit like this. And so, but MSNBC, shame on them. They have no shame, none whatsoever. I mean, look at Cenk Uygur called out the corruption in the Democratic Party. He no longer works there. Phil Donahue was against the Iraq War. He no longer works there because they wanted a totally pro-war network at the time because that was the mood in the country. Ed Schultz called out TPP, and Ed Schultz backed Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton. They tried to suppress him from covering it, and then they let him go and fired him. So this is a network that has repeatedly proved they don't care about the actual issues. They don't care about policy substance. They care about having a mouthpiece for the Democratic establishment and for corporate America. And that's what Joy-Ann Reid is. And this is such a clear example of it, because if they really cared about fake news, they would let her go because of that, not because of the shitty opinion she had or the bad joke she told or whatever. I total pass on that, total forgiveness for that, and she's on the right side of those issues now. The problem is that she's a goddamn liar.